Welcome, Wanderer. Basic skills are completely broken. Chaotic perks allow them to critical strike and overpower with 100% bonus damage every single cast. However, they would get a 3-second cooldown. That's not a problem though, because if we're machine gun bone spiriting, we're pumping out bone splinters left, right, and center that will all then be critical strike overpowered, supercharged, absolutely obliterating everything. There are two versions of this build. The zero cooldown super machine gun for Infernal Hordes, Helltides, and whatsoever, and then the pit-pushing trillions of damage Bone Splinter madness. I will present both versions to you, and yes, they don't need a single mythic, and also explain the very important breakpoints to hit to make this work. The build works because of two things. Unstable power, making our basic skills critical strike overpower with 100% bonus damage and that 3-second cooldown. And then the Shattered Spirit aspect, which says casting Bone Spirit also launches 18 Bone Splinters and gives them 900% bonus damage. Now, I only have the 400% bonus damage version, and yet I already have cleared Pit 100 and I'm absolutely obliterating everything, which means if I had 500% damage more, I would be sitting easily in the double-digit trillions. The gameplay loop is quite simple. You activate Bone Storm, jump into your opponents, hold down the Bone Spirit button, pull them together with your Corpse Tendrils, and then one single Reap. Why one single Reap? Because we can finally play Gospel of the Devotee. This one says your basic skills are empowered and buff other basic skills, giving them 40% bonus damage. If I now Reap, my Bone Splinters have more damage and will pierce through enemies. And that's obviously incredibly good for the pit, because if I have a 200 billion Bone Splinter, that just pierces through an enemy and hits the next enemy for 200 billion as well. Crazy. Especially when it then goes to the trillions and even more. Simply pull them together, one single Reap, and for 10 seconds, every opponent you hit with a Reap, and it's like that 360 turnaround super, you just pierce and destroy everything. How do we do this infinite Bone Spirit spam now? Because there are going to be two versions, the pit pushing that relies on crit and the super cooldown reduction. The crit version is way easier to pull through. For the cooldown reduction one, you'll need way more equipment. Step 1 is the Shattered Spirit aspect we talked about. You need this. There's no chance to play the build actually without it, because otherwise you don't get the Bone Splinters. Then, it's very important to get your critical strike chance to 100%. Mine shows only 50 right now. No worries, it's actually higher. Why do we need the 100% critical strike chance? Because Bone Spirit says, if Bone Spirit critical strikes, its cooldown is reduced by 7 seconds. In order to make this happen, you have the bonus 10% critical strike chance from the Ghastly Bone Spirit, and we also get another 20% critical strike chance if Bone Storm is active. Cool. That already means that I am easily sitting here, instead of 48.7%, at 80% critical strike chance. I simply have to activate my Bone Storm, 68.7, plus the 10%. Then, you can temper Bone critical strike chance. That's another 8%, Bone critical strike chance, another 6%, so plus 13, and then another Bone critical strike chance with another 6%. So we're sitting at 19% bonus. And this easily gets us to 68.7 plus the 10% plus the 19%, ta-da, 100% critical strike chance. This wouldn't automatically allow you though to hold down your button, because you're not at 7 seconds cooldown yet. Exactly. You need to bring the Bone Spirit's cooldown down to 7 seconds to make it work. For this, you have a couple of amazing tools though. The first one being the Paingorger's Gauntlets. They give you 8 ranks to basic skills. And more ranks to basic skills is more Bone Splinter damage. I think it's a total of 30% more for those 8 ranks. Plus, it gives you 12.3% cooldown reduction. Without this, we're actually sitting at 8.33. And if I now go crit away, well, it's still allowing me to do it because we have another source of cooldown reduction. Haha. And that source of cooldown reduction is called a Rapid Ossification. Every 100 essence you spend reduces cooldowns of your bone skills by 1.5 seconds. Now, we have 191 essence, and if I cast, I pretty much fill up my essence globe. So I always get that 1.5 seconds on top. I crit with a Bone Spirit and 1.5 seconds, so an 8.5 seconds cooldown reduction. How do we get so much resource back to pretty much always have that 100 essence? That's over the temper. Casting Macabre skills restores resource, Casting Macabre Skills restores resource, and also the actual Bone Splinters giving you essence per hit. Now, if you want to, what you minimally need is 2 items with the Macabre Skills resource. You can also temper Rapid Ossification, and that will be needed 2 times Masterwork at least for the 100% Super Zero cooldown version that will show you after this one. Okay, so with the Rapid Ossification tempers, for example, you would bring up your cooldown reduction now to 4 seconds. That means my Bone Spirit only needs to go down to 11 seconds to be already able on a critical strike to instant cast. Now, if you're not hitting anyone though, or if you're not critting, we're at this 3-second cooldown, which feels a bit weird. So in this version, in the pit pushing version, you actually need to hit things, but you always hit things in the pit because they're always opponents. In order to get even more cooldown reduction, you have the Crown of Lucian, and you really want the Crown of Lucian because this one gives you 18% more damage, 5 times stacked, if we use a skill that uses up a resource. Well, no problem. We're always using up resource, and we always use up our whole globe. So if Bone Spirit gets more expensive, who cares? we always use it up. We always have the 5 times stack from the Crown of Lucian consistently going on. By the way, it doesn't matter if the Crown of Lucian is now your boots, your chest, or your helmet. You just need to have it alongside the other stuff. Since our next cooldown reduction is on the Lidless Wall, and we want the Lidless Wall for a couple of reasons, as our helmet, chest, boots, pants, gloves, wherever. Again, the Lidless Wall says, while you have an active Bone Storm, you make bonus Bone Storms, but most importantly, each active Bone Storm grants 20% increased critical strike damage up to 100%. You now activate the Bone Storm and keep spamming away. You keep making more Bone Storms everywhere, and this just has your damage multiply up like crazy. And the good thing is, due to the auxiliary Bone Storms happening, even if your own Bone Storm runs out, the other Bone Storms are still happening, and therefore they're providing you with that 20% bonus crit chance always. So you don't have this problem where, oh no, I'm out of Bone Storm cooldown, or I don't have the Bone Storm around me right now, and you lose that 20% crit. Now, you have it always going on because there's always a Bone Storm somewhere. That being said, you don't need the Lidless Wall to make this work. This is literally the boost. It makes it stronger. There's also a normal helmet just with cooldown reduction and maximum resource, which is actually great. Or you could get yourself a Harlequin Crest if you have it. That would be fantastic too. Again, you don't need it, but it's the super wombo combo damage. And then as our pants, we're playing a complete normal one with Cursed Aura. We could technically curse away. However, I'm lazy, and I want to make this build feel convenient, right? We have ranks to basic skills because more basic skill ranks are more damage. We increase the Bone Storm duration, and we have total armor. Plus then the so-called Decrepify Aura. As a little awesomeness on top, you're playing the Shot of Arathiel to give your basic skills another 135% bonus damage. That's pretty cool. We get more maximum resource. More maximum resource is going to be more damage, as we're always casting our bone skills at maximum resource, right? Our Bone Splinters will get that 140% bonus damage from the Ossified Essence. That's why you want the maximum resource things, and more ranks to basic skills. These are all bonus things though. The minimal thing that we needed is 7-second cooldown, 100% crit chance, and the Shattered Spirit. Everything else is simply making this stronger. The Gospel of the Devotee, for example, is absolutely not needed. However, in the pit, as you then go for the spam, there's, by the way, still Bone Storms happening, and then you reap, and then you have your splinters actually pierce things instead of getting stuck in things. That makes it so much better. That will streamline everything. Again, because if you do a 200, 1 trillion, whatever, 2 trillion hit, it goes through, and it hits everyone in the line of sight. Boom. Your skill tree, the most important things to hit are maximum ranks to Bone Splinters, and more essence for the more damage. In between, we have a Blight for the 10% damage multiplier, but I'm mostly too lazy to actually throw it. We get our Curse, dealing bonus damage and giving us some bonus cooldown reduction to always have our Pull Together Corpse Tendrils online. The Corpse Tendrils are actually making Blood Orbs instead of Vulnerable because we have the animal Vulnerable with the Fist of Fate consistently. And the Fist of Fate are providing a lot of lucky hit chance, which are also responsible for our barrier with necrotic fortitude. Yep, that's pretty much how we're undying at every given point. Then we're choosing to do shadow damage shenanigans here, and that has the simple reason that we're playing the aspect of decaying humorous. Your bone skills now deal shadow damage instead of physical damage. However, they're still bone skilled, so everything bone related buffs them, but they do shadow damage, so more shadow damage works on them as well. Then you're going to boost all the bone shenanigans here, but only 1 point in bone spirit, because more points in bone spirit is only more damage, but it's not giving you more cooldown reduction. We get finality for the ultimate skill damage increase, with a Memento Mori and standalone for the damage reduction, and we're actually playing the Ossified Essence for that bonus damage on full Essence cast, plus all the points inspiring leader for more critical strike chance. Only 1 single point in Bone Storm. Again, more points are not doing anything for us because the cooldown is low enough, the uptime is high enough. It's fine. You don't need to weasel more points into this one. Now, before we talk about the infinite Bone Spirit spam, the super machine gun, let me shine some light on the Paragon Board, where we go with the Eliminator glyph for the maximum intelligence, together with Wither. And that Wither works on the Bone Spirit. It works on the Bone Splinters. It works on everything you're doing because they're now doing shadow damage, and they can randomly get 300% bonus damage. That gives us into the Bloodbath board for that bonus overpower damage. Amazing. Together with a Gravekeeper glyph to boost our overpower and damage while fortified higher. Also, here we have the Abyssal glyph in the first board and the Wither board, but we're going here from the tippity-toppity as we're going through because we don't need the middle parts actually. Abyssal gives us non-physical damage, and we do only non-physical damage. Then from the Bloodbath board, it goes up into the Bonegraft board for more maximum essence, Dankeschön, and even more maximum essence. Yes, you really want this. Together with the Essence glyph completely boosted up. Take like every single point of dexterity that you can. I actually have a few less taken right now because I don't have enough, right? Then we also have the Dominate glyph here in the Frailty board for the maximum overpower damage with the attack speed. Attack speed is king. The more spirits you do, the more splinters you get, the better it is. And then I set we're going down here into the Abyssal. Now, how do we go from having to hit enemies with our ghosts to being able to just spam away? And for this, we have to hit another different breakpoint. Forget about the 100% crit right now, because the 7-second cooldown reduction only works if you have actually hitting someone. If I now cast here in the wild, I'm left with a 4-second cooldown, so I can't just simply spam away. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get as much cooldown reduction as possible, and you need that rapid ossification temper. One single one, because we still need to stay above 100 essence as we cast our thing, right? Every cast needs to have us be at 100 essence after the cast. Now I'm going to say this, if you manage to triple Masterwork Rapid Ossification, it's vastly easier, because I'm sitting at a 4-second cooldown. That means I need to get Bone Spirit down to a 4-second cooldown. However, that's quite harsh. I mean, you need a lot of cooldown reduction items. You can kick out the Gospel of the Devotee to get yourself an offhand with cooldown reduction. That's another 13.6%. Then you could make sure that you have the Paingorger's Gauntlet, for example, with a greater affix to cooldown reduction, and or you could play a Godslayer Crown with another 20% cooldown reduction. The easiest way to do this is to get a Harlequin Crest as a helmet. I don't have a Harlequin Crest, right? With the Godslayer Crown, for example, over the Fist of Fate, I'm suddenly sitting at 5.09 and the Gospel of the Devotee instead of the Rooting Orb. If I then now choose to use a normal helmet for a 16% cooldown reduction instead of the Litless Wall, and I use my Litless Wall as my pans with a greater affix cooldown reduction, suddenly we're sitting at 3.98 seconds. Yes, that sounds a bit crazy. You need a helmet with cooldown reduction and an offhand. We need to have a chest speed with cooldown reduction. You have the cooldown reduction on Paingorger's Gauntlet, Litless Wall cooldown reduction, and Crown of Lucian cooldown reduction. None of this is though triple masterworked or even double masterworked apart from that one up here, right? So it actually works without having the perfect items. Again, if you have a Harlequin Crest with a greater affix cooldown reduction, this is easier. You don't have to min-max fiddle around as much as I do. However, if you do this, then you're actually able to just spam away. And since all your damage is coming from the Shattered Spirit aspect, or let's say most of your damage is coming from the Shattered Spirit aspect, you're still going to be doing billions without having to worry. Therefore, we're actually able to stand in the middle of an Infernal Horde, for example, and we don't have to rely on hitting enemies, right? I can really just stay here in the middle, I hold down my button, and everything dies. I get my storms around me, my spirits reach in the furthest region of this, and I pretty much just have to dash one time, then we're gonna destroy everything again. You notice how much more convenient this is. The thing is, this will do lesser damage. Yes, I won't do my maximum super ultra damage, but you're doing more than enough, right? Like if I had the, again, better aspect, I would be doing here hundreds, 200 billions of damage easily. I mean, we're still doing billions of damage, right? But it's convenient. And that's the thing. Otherwise, in the Infernal Hordes, you always have to hit a minion. And that stings. Because if you always have to hit a minion, the moment you're not hitting one, you're not getting cooldown reduction, and then you're starved, and then you can't just spam away like you really want to spam away. So this is obviously the better version for being out here and having fun. But it's not going to be the easy version to pull through, right? This is hard to make. Whereas the pit pushing version is super easy to pull through, and you don't need that many moving pieces. The moving pieces are only making it stronger, but to basically get it to work, it's again down to 7 seconds Bone Spirit and 100% critical strike chance. And for that, you have the tempers that easily get you there with the Shattered Spirit aspect. Now, other aspects, by the way, that we need to make this stronger are going to be adaptability, because adaptability gives you more damage the more resource you're having. That's amazing. That's another 100% damage multiplier with 200 essence. And on your offhand, you can actually play the aspect of Moonrise, which stacks your damage up further and gives you more attack speed. That works anyways great if you manage to get a Gospel of the Devotee as a chaotic armor piece, because then you want to anyways play an offhand like this. And the main reason that will make you so much stronger is the weapon temper Bone Augments. Chance for Bone Splinters to cast twice. Because this will have the Bone Splinters that are coming out of you. If you then super masterwork that offhand, be going super machine gun. That would be only needed though for super pit pushing. Again, that's not needed for anything else, for existing, for having fun. An interesting part about chaotic perks, we get the unstable power that makes us stronger, and we have the crazy brew that gives us super attack speed. But we're also playing Brawn over Brains for another 125% overpower damage, oh, and 200% maximum life, which works extremely well for just staying alive. Now, get to keep in mind that 800 armor is the max you should get for the 60% damage reduction, and we need 50-50-50 resistances. Very easy to reach though with Song of the Mountain, Soothing Spices Incense stacked, and then you can get yourself even more critical strike chance with the Elixir of Precision. That's my triple stack for maximum defense and also maximum damage. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you say? Is this something for you? Bone Spirit Machine Gun, or rather the pit pushing version? Both are amazing. Give it a try, watch this video, tell me your opinion, and see you in the next one.